Hello, in this video, we're going to be talking about the spinal nerves. Let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now, I know I'm covered up here. I just didn't have any room anywhere to put myself, but I'm in there. You can kind of see the green down at the bottom there. So if you came to see me, I apologize. You'll get me on the next slide. But we want to talk about, first of all, we mentioned this in the last video, that there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves coming out. And you can see there that they are mixed nerves. Okay, and that refers to the fact that there's both sensory and motor fibers as a part of those spinal nerves. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, I thought everything was just one way. It's either taking information to the spinal cord and up to the brain, or it's back down. And you are right about that. A spinal nerve, as you're going to see here on the next screen, has the two parts, the posterior root and the anterior root. The posterior root receives the sensory information, takes it to the spinal cord. The anterior root takes the information from the spinal cord out to wherever it needs to go. So you are right in your thinking there. It has both, but it's two separate things that do both. There's not a nerve fiber that does both. So you are right in your thinking. Now, of those 31 pairs, 8 are in the cervical, which is the second largest amount per section. And of course, that's C1 to C8. That's right there in your neck, and you can kind of feel down through there if you choose to. And C1, I got a reference to C1 here and C2 because they are modified vertebrae. C1 is certainly modified. You can see that in the picture, in the diagram to the far right. It's the one closest to the middle. The C1 is not a true vertebrae in the fact that it doesn't have all the structures that the rest of the vertebrae have. For one, it doesn't have the big spike piece up front that kind of locks all of them together. One of the reasons why your vertebrae 1 stands up and works so well is that part that sticks up. As we look at them in the classroom, you'll see this, but they don't lock into them in a fixed standpoint, but they do fit together pretty good to where that's one of the reasons why you have limited range as far as bending over. It's either just slump over or bend over at the waist, or bend down with your knees. You simply just can't take your top half of your vertebrae and bend it over. It's because they're kind of locked into place, but not C1. Okay, the reason why you can nod, okay, that's because that part isn't there. Gives you that flexibility. So C1 is kind of special. C2 is special as well, the atlas. It has all the parts, but it's a much smaller and thinner model to give you a little more flexibility in your neck and a little bit of the movement there. The next set, the thoracic, you got 12 there. That's the longest section. Runs down through where the heart would be, and the esophagus and the lungs, and then you get your lumbar right below where the diaphragm would start. Those big 5. I've got just basically a bucket of vertebrae, and the lumbar you can pick out very easily because they're the largest of the set. I mean, they have to support everything from above, so they've really got to be a good foundation. And then you got your 5 sacral, which isn't really, there are 5, but they're kind of more fused together, but we'll look at that as well. And of course your coccygeal. And again, remember that number is a reference to not how many vertebrae there are, how many nerves are coming out. I kind of got myself off track there a little bit. But reminding myself and reminding you that that number is not the number of vertebrae in the section. It's the number of the spinal nerves that come out of that. And of course the word mixed nerves, as I already talked about, and introvate, I think we'll see that on the next one. That just simply means it supplies the resources for that section. All right, on this slide again, we're going to talk about those two branches coming out of and into the spinal cord that I mentioned. Okay, so what you're seeing here, this is a picture of one spinal nerve, and you can see it's got the two roots, the posterior root and the anterior root, and we've already mentioned this on the last screen, but we'll talk about it again. That's the 2 points of attachment to the spinal cord. And the posterior root receives sensory information, and the anterior root sends motor information out to away from the spinal cord. So the posterior, it goes to the spinal cord. Anterior, it goes away from the spinal cord. And lastly, we'll look at this again, and this again we've seen this in type. Again, you got your 31 pairs, and you can kind of see the 8, 12, 5, 5, 1 kind of pattern. 8 plus 12 is 20, 5 and 5 is 10, that's 30, and of course the 1 for the 31, that is your spinal nerve pattern. Alright, that's our video over spinal nerves. When we come back together next time, I gotta flip the page here, we'll be talking about the meninges. We'll see you then.